Welcome to the Gloves Are Off Overtime Edition. I'm Moses Woldu. I'm joined by Greg Buchanan, my co-host.
Hey,
Hello.
Moses.
And our guest from the Lloydminster Source, the sports editor, Andrew Brethauer.
Thank you.
All right, awesome to have you on. I know there's a couple questions we didn't get to, and we kind of chatted in between breaks during our actual show. Barry Trotz, what can you say about him? I think he's a great coach. Is definitely going to not wait on the couch for very long to get another job in the NHL. But do you feel this is more a preemptive strike by their GM, Dave Poley, to leave some heat off him and put it on somebody so he can still keep his job? Is that fair?
That's what GMs do all the time. I know that. Yeah, a lot of times the GM knows things aren't going well. I've been around for a long time. I don't want to lose my job, so guess what? But by saying that too, sometimes having a different voice after having that same voice for 15 years may not be a bad thing.
Yeah, he's been there for so long. I think by now, people realize this isn't a Dave Poley saving his job type of thing. The guy's been there forever, and he's an amazing coach. No one's going to deny. There's probably 20 other teams would be perfectly happy if they slid him right in. Toronto, Vancouver, Winnipeg. So everyone would take this guy as a coach. So I don't think really it's a save my job type scenario. I think it's more just, you need a new voice. It's been the same thing for 15. You haven't gone to that next level. Time for change.
But in all fairness, would you put that all, like what happened to them this season, on Trotz? Because there was a lot of injuries, especially the goalie situation didn't really help, losing Pekka Rinne early on. Is that fair for him to get canned because of injuries?
Well, maybe not for injuries, but his game really hasn't changed too much. A Barry Trotz team is a Barry Trotz team. From the year one in this 15 years to year number 15 in Nashville, his team is a good, solid defensive squad. They don't run and gun. They don't gamble a lot. It's kind of boring hockey to watch at times, but it can be effective. But after a while, sometimes you want to try something new.
Manny Pacquiao defeated Timothy Bradley in the second rematch between these two. Of course, Bradley taking the first one and Pacquiao reclaiming his WBO title in 12 rounds. And it was a pretty good 12 rounds, too. Does the victory for Pacquiao all of a sudden rekindle a potential fight with Floyd Mayweather? They're getting up in age, but I still think they're good enough. Is that fair to say?
I think it will, because people want to still see that. I think the boxing purists want to see that fight. But as you said, they're getting up in age. I think the time when they were both the most elite, and where this would be it's still going to be marquee, but marquee event, I think is over. But people are going to start to talk about it because there's not much boxing to talk about. That's pretty much left for boxing, is those two.
So yeah, boxing's looking to grab onto those big names because they really need to hype up. And there's not a lot of big names out there in the sport of boxing anymore. So when you have two big names, it doesn't matter how old they are, let's put them in the ring and make some money.
Let's go to the fight itself. Timothy Bradley had a calf injury after the first round. That's what was reported and confirmed after the fight. But would that in any way the reason for Bradley losing his first ever career fight and Pacquiao getting the win, or there's more to it?
You could probably say that's part of the reason. I think anyone would say that's somewhat of a reason, but nowadays I think people are fighting through. Look at the UFC guys are fighting through just crazy injuries to compete anyway. So I don't know if that you can really say he competed the whole round. They went 12 rounds, so I don't know much. It's 11 rounds. You went with an injured leg, so I don't think you're really going to matter too much.
Like in UFC, there's been fighters in the UFC that have competed right from the start of a fight to the end of the fight with a punctured lung. Like, can you imagine that? Yeah, how do you breathe? But he fought, so you have to overcome a lot when you're fighting, and he couldn't.
The NHL is facing another lawsuit, 9 players this time, and in the paper, I think this is a great way to teach kids about grammar, as well as getting your facts right. First and foremost, spelling Sidney Crosby's name wrong was the obvious one. And I think the biggest red flag was saying Gordie Howe was dead. Outside of the obvious mistakes,
he isn't?
And as joking, and all kidding aside, outside of those mistakes, does this lawsuit have any legs?
I think I know what to put on my Penguins jersey now. I think I got the good spelling right.
Is it Cindy?
Yeah. So, I think it doesn't have too much legs. I really don't like these lawsuits. Looking back at 20 years ago, that players got injured, players got concussed. Like medicine and health and everything has changed so much in that much time. Like what we didn't know then versus what we know now. How can you possibly?
Well, it seemed to happen in the NFL, and they ended up getting a settlement out of it. The players did.
You know what? The only person who makes money off these lawsuits and makes anything out of it is the lawyers. So if this goes to court at all, I hope it doesn't, because then you're getting sick of these lawsuits that they're just kind of pulling at strings, and I don't think it has any kind of weight at all.
All right, guys. Well, you guys certainly didn't pull any strings or punches in this case that weren't warranted. Thanks a lot, Greg. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thanks, Moses.
Thanks.
All right, and thank you for joining us on the OT edition. Please join us every Tuesday night, CITL, at 7:30, and then come back here to watch the questions that weren't answered. In the meantime, we will see you in 7 days.